Today I am going to tell you about one of the most horrific aviation disasters in the history of the modern world. This is Air France Flight 447, which mysteriously disappeared over Atlantic Ocean on June 1st, 2009, on a flight from Rio de Janeiro Airport to Paris. As with every disappearance or crash, various theories about what happened to the plane quickly spread in the press, but none of them could be confirmed, because investigators did not have access to so-called black boxes, or plane's data and cockpit voice recording devices. A search party was dispatched to the suspected crash site. 5 days later they managed to find remains of 2 passengers. Judging by their condition, it is unlikely that any of the 228 people on board at the time survived the crash. After an initial search for the remains, the search for aircraft's black boxes was launched. This was necessary to find out why the plane had crashed in the first place. But there was only one problem. The site where the data recorders were probably located was from 3 to 4 kilometers deep. The black boxes are equipped with signal beacons, but they are only active for 30 days. Therefore, special probes were deployed to retrain the search and were able to descend to these depths without problems. Despite best efforts of the several groups involved, the black boxes were never found.
Nearly 2 years ago, Air France Flight 447 mysteriously crashed in the Atlantic, killing 228 people. Now, with the flight recorders finally recovered from the ocean floor, we know more about what happened in the final harrowing moments of that Rio to Paris flight.
But then, 2 years after the plane crash, the data recorders were finally found, which means only one thing. It will be possible to find out the cause that led to the plane's destruction. Listening to the cockpit voice recorder reveals some truly horrifying facts. The 2 pilots who were at the control of the plane at the time of the crash were confused and lost control of the aircraft. This came as a great surprise to the investigators who listened to these recordings, because there were 3 skilled pilots on that flight: 58-year-old experienced Captain Morgue de Blas, 37-year-old First Officer David Roberts, and least experienced 32-year-old First Officer Pierce Cedric Bonin, who was positioned as chief pilot on that flight. Shortly after the takeoff, the captain left the flight deck and took the pre-planned rest break, during which he went to sleep. As already mentioned, Bonin remained at the controls and Roberts acted as his assistant. Few minutes after the captain left, one of the airspeed sensors stopped working and the autopilot cut off without receiving the correct information. This meant that Bonin was manually controlling the flight. The sensor probably stopped working because the plane had flown in a small storm and it froze. This is a relatively common problem that would not worry a trained pilot too much, and here he makes his first fatal mistake. Instead of simply continuing to fly as before, Bonin, for reasons unexplained to his colleague, lifts the plane's nose up. This maneuver causes the plane to climb higher, while at the same time losing speed. Moments later, a new warning appears on the panel. This means only one thing: the plane has lost so much speed that it will soon be unable to glide and will simply fall out of the sky. Not understanding what is happening, both pilots ignore the warning alarm and panic. Again, despite the fact that plane's speed has drastically reduced, Bonin is still holding the plane yoke in a position which makes the plane climb. In such situation, the exact opposite must be done. The plane's nose has to be brought down so it can quickly speed up and keep flying. Robert repeatedly tries to call the captain to the cabin. When he got there, the captain couldn't believe what he was seeing. The aircraft was losing altitude and its speed was not high enough to be able to maintain steady flight. In the dark night, it is impossible to determine what position the plane is in. CVR recorder picked up the very loud noise from the plane's rapid descent. Pilots were thinking it is caused by the opposite, the plane flying too fast. Within 3 minutes, the plane has dropped from an altitude of 12 kilometers to 3 kilometers. And that's the moment Captain and Robert finally noticed the Bonin has been holding the plane's nose up in the air all this time. Unfortunately, by then it's too late to correct the situation. There's only less than a minute before the plane, with all 228 people on board, crashes into the ocean. Seconds before the impact, the plane's altitude sensor begins to warn of the ocean surface. This is the moment when all 3 pilots realize they are going to die. Bonin, who held the plane's nose up for most of the crash, didn't realize what was happening even at the last moment. Air France Flight 447 crashes into the ocean, killing all passengers and crew. The final investigation identified a number of factors that led to the accident. The main blame is placed on pilot error. It is found that not long after malfunction, the speed sensors came back online and gave the correct information to the pilots, but at that time they no longer trusted the instruments and Vonen's further actions led to the plane simply falling out of the sky. If you like this video, don't forget to press like and see you next time.